Alright, welcome back to another episode of Jeremy's Point of View. Here in today's episode, I'm going to be doing a breakdown of UFC 272. We're going to take a look at the fights, go over some of the betting odds, make some picks, and I'll talk to you guys about some Draftkings. Typically, I don't do a whole lot of betting lines or things like that. I used to, not so much anymore. But I do like to play a lot of Draftkings, and I typically pull off some pretty good winning lineups. I mean, I'm in the positive money-wise with Draftkings, and I continuously play with Draftkings money, so that's always a positive. I haven't hit anything majorly big, but I feel like I can help you guys, make some pretty good picks on some of these fights. So let's go ahead. We'll dive right into the card. This is UFC 272, Jorge Masvidal versus Colby Covington. And the first fight on the card we're going to discuss is Dustin Jacoby versus Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. And that's an interesting one. This is going to be one of my first ones where I take a look at it and I say, I think there's a really, really good shot on the underdog in this fight. Dustin Jacoby's looked very good in his last few fights. He fights very long. He's got some very good combinations. He's very good on the feet. He knows how to keep it standing, but so does Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. Oleksiejczuk is typically, in a lot of his fights, he's a bit of the shorter fighter. He's a bit of the smaller fighter at that weight class, but he has very, very, very good boxing combinations. He puts it all together, and he's gotten better at keeping it on the feet. Where he's had issues are, he's had issues against fighters that can really counter punch, because Oleksiejczuk loves to put pressure on other fighters, and he likes to just continuously put together those boxing combinations. He's got very, very good boxing combinations. And this fight, I feel like with the line being Jacoby minus 188 and Oleksiejczuk being a plus 140 underdog, I think there's a very, very good shot here on taking the underdog in Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. I think Jacoby does have a similar power advantage. I don't know. I'm a little torn on it. We've seen Mikhail have some pretty good power in some of his fights, but so does Dustin. Dustin does too, and he's looked very good in his last few fights. So I think it's going to be a close fight, but I do think Mikhail Oleksiejczuk has a chance to pull this out, and I think this one will end up going to a decision, and I'm going to take Mikhail Oleksiejczuk by decision in this one. Next fight on the card we're going to take a look at here is Ludwig Klein taking on Devonte Smith. I don't have a whole lot to say about this fight. Devonte Smith is extremely talented, and it's just a matter of him putting it together consistently. Ludwig Klein is a tough challenge for Devonte Smith, but this is one of those fights that's setting up Devonte Smith for the future. I think he has got a lot of potential in Devonte Smith, and I do think he's going to go out there and win this fight, and probably is going to take it by knockout. I don't see a whole lot of value in taking somebody like Ludwig Klein in this spot here. Let's see, next one on the fight card I want to discuss is going to be Brian Boom Kelleher taking on Umar Nurmagomedov. Obviously with Umar, we've got the Nurmagomedov hype. Umar is an extremely talented fighter. But I think a lot of people are sleeping on Brian Kelleher. I really, really like Brian Kelleher. He's got pretty good takedown defense, and he does have some sneaky jiu-jitsu that he's able to work in there. He's got some good guillotines. He's got some good transitions, some good sweeps. Kelleher's pretty solid. He's solid on the feet. He's solid everywhere. So this is going to be probably Umar Nurmagomedov's biggest challenge so far. Brian Kelleher is a fighter that's not going to give up, and he's going to try to take you all 3 rounds, and he never stops trying to win the fight. I really like Kelleher. I do think ultimately Umar Nurmagomedov is going to out-grapple him, and I think he's going to probably get a decision. I don't potentially see him finishing Brian Kelleher, but there is always a chance. But I think Kelleher is going to give him a scrappy fight, and I think this is going to go, all 3 rounds, and we'll see a decision ultimately. I do pick Umar Nurmagomedov as the favorite, but don't sleep on Kelleher. I do think there is a chance to take possibly a shot on this fight at that plus money, but I don't trust it 100%. As much as I like Brian Kelleher and I think he's a very talented fighter, I just think Umar Nurmagomedov is going to be a little bit too much at this stage of their career. Let's go ahead and we're going to jump around here a little bit. We got Maria Agapova taking on Marina Moroz. With the line being where it is, minus 140 on Agapova, plus 115 on Moroz, Moroz has been a fighter where consistency has been a struggle for her. I think both girls really need to find some consistency. Moroz had, those armbar finishes when she first got into the UFC. She has very solid boxing combinations, but her takedown defense has failed her at times, and when she can't get the submission off her back or get back to her feet, she struggles. I do think this is going to be a very, very close matchup on the feet. It's probably going to go all 3 rounds, and this is going to be one of those ones where don't be surprised if it's a split decision. So taking plus money on Marina, it's not a bad shot to take in this spot. I do think that she's going to be able to stand, and she's going to be able to hang with Maria Agapova for most of this fight. So ultimately, I am going to actually take Marina Moroz as the underdog in this spot. But this is, like I said, this is going to be one of those typical women's fights that goes all 3 rounds, and it's a toss-up at the end as far as who won it. Next one on the fight card that I'm really excited about, I'm going to talk about Zhaonan taking on Marina Rodriguez. Rodriguez is the minus 240 favorite to the plus 190 underdog that is Zhaonan. Zhaonan is a very talented fighter. She has done some very good work since getting into the UFC, but I think ultimately Marina Rodriguez is just another level of badass. Marina has really been putting it together. She is on a march for that title, and I think she's on the feet, man. She's just vicious. She is vicious to the other women, and she's just a bad motherfucker. And it's really going to come down to, can Marina keep it on the feet consistently? Against Mackenzie Dern, for the most part, she did it. She was able to keep it on the feet. You can tell Marina Rodriguez's takedown defense is getting better, but she needs to get it to that Joanna Jędrzejczyk level before she's gonna, stop struggling against some of these wrestling type fighters. I don't see Yan possessing the wrestling to keep her down, but in a 3-round fight, if Yan is able to steal around, get Marina down, and not let her back up, it would not surprise me if this could be a closer fight than the odds are saying. Ultimately, I do think 100% Marina Rodriguez is going to keep this on the feet, and she's going to piece up Zhaonan, and she could even get a finish in this. It is 3 rounds, so I'm not going to be surprised if it does go through all 3 rounds. I think Zhaonan is a very, very tough fighter, and Marina Rodriguez is going to have to separate her from consciousness if she wants to get her out of there. But it's going to be an exciting one. I'm really, really looking forward to this fight on the fight card. And ultimately, I don't see a whole lot on the underdog Zhaonan. I think Marina Rodriguez is a potential future title challenger and potential future, title winner at some point. So I'm going to take Marina Rodriguez, and I'm going to say by 3-round destruction. Next on the fight card, we've got Jalen Turner. He's minus 150, taking on Jamie Mullarkey, plus 130. And this one, where it's lined, I feel pretty comfortable with that. I think Jalen Turner overall, on the feet, on the ground, I think consistently he is the better fighter. It's just going to come down to who wants it more. Mullarkey's one of these fighters where he might not be able to out-technical you. He might not be the crisper boxer, the crisper striker overall, or the crisper guy on the ground, or the best wrestling. But Mullarkey's got a gas tank, and he works for it. He is a workhorse, and against some fighters when they're not on their A game that day, and for certain fighters that just don't, if you're off just a little bit, Mullarkey is the type of guy that will take advantage of that. He will take advantage of it, he will catch you with a looping hook, or he will take you down and ground you out and win a close decision. So ultimately, I do think there is some money to possibly be had in Jamie Mullarkey here in the underdog spot. I'm not super high on Mullarkey, but I do appreciate that he goes out there and he gives it his all every single fight. He's very tough, he's very gritty, and you have to really be on your A game to put him away, because he's a guy that will keep coming for 3 rounds. Doesn't matter if you whooped his ass the first 2. That 3rd round, he's going to keep coming, and he's going to try to get you out of there, or he's going to try to take you down and completely wear you out. So I am going to take Jalen Turner in this spot, but I do think there is some plus money there to be had on Jamie Mullarkey as the plus 130 underdog. All right, next up, we've got Greg Hardy, plus 150 underdog, taking on Sergey Spivak, minus 185. This one's a tough one for me. I'm interested to see where Greg Hardy's game has progressed to, but Sergey's an interesting fighter. Consistency has not been his strong suit so far in the UFC, but he is pretty decent on the feet. Doesn't possess a ton of power, but he can switch things up. He can take you to the ground, and he can keep you there, and he can smother you there. We've seen it. And Greg Hardy's kryptonite has been two big things. I should say three things. Sometimes it's been the gas tank. Sometimes it's been fighters that are just better than him at getting him to the ground, are able to smother him and wear him out and eventually finish him. And the third thing is sometimes Hardy overcommits. He gets guys hurt, and he overcommits on shots, and he gets caught. Like Tai Tuivasa put him away when he overcommitted and overextended himself. So if this stays on the feet, I do think Hardy could win this matchup. I do think he does have the powerfuler striking. He's more powerful than Sergey Spivak on the feet. But I do think Sergey has a route to victory by taking us to the ground. And obviously the odds reflect that, with Sergey being the almost minus 200 favorite in this spot. So I do think there is a chance to be taken on Greg Hardy, but Greg Hardy's inconsistencies are what worry me, and they're why I would never place money on him. As much as I think he could be a very talented, he's an extremely talented athlete. I'm not going to take that away from him. It's putting together the full game, mentally being there, and developing that part of his game that he struggles with. He's okay on the feet, but he needs to make better decisions. He needs to be able to keep it on the feet, and the gas tank needs to be there for 3 to 5 rounds, depending on the fight that he's in. And we haven't seen it consistently yet. Sometimes he goes out there and he can put a guy away. Sometimes he can go out there. I was very impressed with Alexander Volkov. He went 5 rounds with Volkov. Great fight. But I just think, in fights like this where a guy like Sergey could take him to the ground and smother him for 3 rounds, or even smother him for a round or 2, completely wear him out and, rear naked choke him, I don't have a lot of faith in Hardy to overcome that. So let's see where Hardy's at. Ultimately, I'm going to take the safe pick and say Sergey Spivak. I'm going to say he's going to get a finish probably in the second round by rear naked choke. But, I'd like to see Greg Hardy's game develop. So hopefully we'll see a better fight than I'm anticipating in this matchup. And next on the card, we got Kevin Holland. He's the minus 200 favorite to the plus 170 underdog. That is Alex Cowboy Oliveira. So Holland Oliveira is an interesting one. Obviously, Oliveira can be a motherfucker on the feet. But he is the type of fighter that, he gets in exciting fights. So this, with Holland and Oliveira, it's going to be an exciting fight. I'm excited to see it. It's going to be a banger. But I think on the feet, Holland is the much more technical striker. He is going to be able to put it together a little bit better than Oliveira. But Oliveira always has that, ability to drag guys into these brawls, to drag guys into these dirty, grimy fights, to get into the clinch, to even get guys to the ground. The problem with Oliveira is he doesn't use technique to do it. He uses a lot of muscle and a lot of energy and a lot of really big, explosive movements to get guys down. And I think Holland off his back is extremely good. Kevin Holland has very good jiu-jitsu. Very, very good jiu-jitsu. And he's been working a lot on his wrestling game, his takedown defense. So I'm excited to see where Holland is as a fighter, because I think his stand-up is very good, and I think he has the ability, if he can keep it on the feet, to beat anybody out there. But Oliveira does have that power. He does have that ability to drag guys into grimy fights, and he does have the ability to really do some damage in the clinch. So I'm excited to see what this fight holds, but I think ultimately Holland is going to be the better fighter everywhere. It just depends. Holland needs to just keep it at distance, keep hitting him with the jab, keep hitting him with the leg kicks, make it his kind of fight, not let Alex drag him into his kind of fight. So I'm going to take Holland as the favorite here, and I'm going to say he's going to win this by 3rd round TKO. Next on the fight card, we got Rafael dos Anjos. He is the minus 180 favorite, he was originally taking on Rafael Fiziev. And now Hanato Moikano is stepping in on short notice, and he's going to be the plus 140 underdog. So, I'm excited. This is a good matchup. It's a good matchup, man. I was starting to fall off the Hanato Moikano train recently, but he's looked so damn good in his last few fights. His striking in that last fight was so crisp, so fast, so explosive, so pinpoint deadly, that I feel like if Hanato's chin just is able to hold up, This guy can beat anybody. The jiu-jitsu is absolutely lights out. His jiu-jitsu, lights out. And it's just been an issue of Hanato Moikano with some decision-making and getting caught in some of these fights. And it's not just at 145, it's been at 155. So I'm interested to see, can Dos Anjos catch him? Can Dos Anjos take him to the ground? Can Dos Anjos, withstand the jiu-jitsu? Because Dos Anjos has got very good jiu-jitsu. Dos Anjos is a very good striker. He's a very well-rounded overall fighter, but I do think Hanato has the quicker, faster, sharper, more pinpoint striking. I think he has more tools in the toolbox than Rafael Dos Anjos has. So I'm really torn about this. I know Hanato is stepping in on short notice, but his last fight, let's face it, wasn't overly strenuous, so he was in fight camp shape. I'm sure he feels pretty confident going into this that he can go 3 rounds, especially being a fighter that used to cut down to 145. And now for this fight, I believe it's going to be at a catch weight, so he won't have to cut so much. So I think there is a big opportunity to take some dog money here on Hanato Moikano at plus 140 or whatever you can get him at. Same thing in Draftkings. I think Hanato Moikano is going to be a fighter that is worth taking the shot on. And I think a lot of people are probably going to be on that, so you may need to do some things to differentiate with Draftkings, but we'll talk about that in a sec. So ultimately, I'm going to take Hanato Moikano. I'm going to say he's going to win this by a tough 3-round decision. I don't know if I can see him putting Rafael Dos Anjos away, but I do think the striking is going to be a little crisper. And if he can keep it on the feet with Rafael, I think he can definitely win this. I think he can definitely pick up a decision here. So I'm going to take Hanato Moikano by decision. And now we're into our co-main event of the night. We got Bryce Mitchell, minus 152 favorite, taking on the plus 132 underdog Edison Barboza. And we've got our very typical striker versus grappler matchup here. Barboza, one of the most dangerous strikers in UFC history, continues to be. Bryce Mitchell is a hell of a grappler. Not as good on the feet, but if we can get this to the ground, it's going to be extremely dangerous. The big question is, can Edson keep this on the feet and piece him up? And Edson's going to have to use his distance management. He's going to have to use the teep kicks. He's going to have to keep pumping that jab, and the leg kicks are going to be huge. He needs to land some really good leg kicks on Bryce Mitchell to take away his ability to push off his feet and really try to get these takedowns. So that first round is going to tell us a lot in this matchup. If Edson can land those leg kicks, hit the calf, really tear it up, use the teeps, keep distance, pump that jab out there, and just keep on moving, keep on his bike, this could be a good matchup. Or, we could see it go in the way of like a Kevin Lee-Khabib kind of fight where they're able to put him constantly on the back foot, wear him out over the first round, and eventually take it down and find the submission or the finish at some point. I'm really torn as to who I think could win this matchup. I think Bryce Mitchell is a very, very good fighter. I think Bryce Mitchell is an extremely talented fighter, very, very good on the ground. And I have a feeling in this matchup he might be biting off more than he can chew, and I think Barboza might be able to keep the distance, chew the legs up, really hit him with some really good, hard, clean shots. Ultimately, Bryce, I know he's a tough fighter, and he's going to keep coming no matter what, so it's just going to come down to, can Edson keep on the feet consistently, not succumb to the pressure, and win himself a 3-round decision or catch him with something really, really big. And with Edson, that is always an opportunity. There's always a chance that he can catch somebody. I mean, he was losing that fight against Beneil Dariush when he caught him with that flying knee, that vicious flying knee. So don't be surprised if Edson picks up a win here. I'm going to take Edson by 2nd round knockout. And we've got, last but not least, we've got Colby Covington in the main event taking on Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. Covington is the minus 350 favorite to the plus 275 underdog that is Jorge Masvidal. And this is going to be a motherfucker of a matchup. We got the bad blood. We got both these guys wanting to go out there and kill each other. And once again, I mean, you guys all know this. On the feet, Jorge is the better fighter. On the feet, Jorge is the better striking, the better boxing combinations. He is the harder puncher. He has solid technique everywhere around. Jorge is the better stand-up fighter. But Colby is a motherfucker when it comes to the grappling. And, has Jorge progressed enough to keep this on the feet? He did a pretty solid job in the last fight against Kamaru, but then he was so worried about the takedown, Kamaru caught him with something big. I'm not saying that Colby doesn't hit hard, but Colby is more of an accumulation puncher. So in a fight like this, with it being 5 rounds, it's going to come down to gas tanks. It's going to come down to how well can Colby initialize and initiate the grappling, keep the grappling exchanges going, and can Jorge, talk some shit early and, kind of sucker Colby into a stand-up fight. If he can really sucker and use some shit talking and whatever else and get in the head of Colby and get him to keep this on the feet, I think Jorge has a huge opportunity to win this fight. I know everybody's down on Jorge in this fight, him being such a big underdog, but you can never call it, you can never count this guy out. You can never count Jorge Masvidal out. I think he is a hell of a fighter. This journeyman shit, I get that, the guy hasn't ever won the big fight, or, Nate Diaz was his biggest win. He couldn't get over the hump with Kamaru and this and that. It doesn't mean he's any less of a talented fighter. Whether you like him or you hate him, whether you like or hate either of these guys, they're both extremely talented fighters. Colby has come a long way in the last few years with his striking. He's done a pretty solid job in his last 2 matchups against Kamaru. Jorge obviously didn't do as good in the matchup against Kamaru, and I think some people are looking at that. They're looking at, well, Colby did so much better against Kamaru than Jorge did. Obviously, he's going to destroy Jorge. MMA math doesn't work that way. Does not work that way. Matchups make everything. I don't think Colby's wrestling, is quite as good as Usman's, and I think Jorge's takedown defense, and when he's on a full camp, he's got the cardio, I think he can keep this standing. It's a matter of keeping it standing more consistently and really holding and keeping that distance. He's got to use the jab, he's got to use the body kick, he's got to use the switch kick to the body. I think Jorge needs to incorporate some more leg kicks, especially calf kicks. I think those could be extremely important at chipping away against somebody like Colby. Colby does stand pretty heavy on that front foot, and if Jorge can, utilize the calf kick, that could really be a game changer in this matchup. It can affect whether or not Colby can really push off and get the kind of, shots and wrestling takedowns that he wants to get in this matchup. So I'm really torn on this matchup. I love Jorge Masvidal. I'm also, for as much as I don't like the gimmick, I think Colby's a great fighter, and I wanted to see him beat Usman. I thought that he really could beat Usman in that matchup, and he came up short twice. So we got a grudge match here. I'm interested as all hell to see how this thing plays out. Your guess is as good as mine, but I am going to take a shot on this one. I am going to take Jorge Masvidal, and I'm going to say he's going to catch Colby with something in the 2nd or 3rd round and potentially put him away. So I'm going to say Jorge Masvidal by knockout. Alright, now let's go ahead and we'll dive into some Draftkings. We'll take a look at some of the players that we got in here, some of the dollar values, how much it costs for some players, and take a look at what I think as far as some lineups and some stuff you guys can do here. So I got stuff pulled up on my phone. I already made a few lineups myself. So most expensive fighters on this card, we've got Umar Magomedov at $9,600, Colby Covington at $9,400, Marina Rodriguez is $9,300, Holland is $9,100, Tagir Ulanbekov is $9,000. And then we kind of dive down into Maria Agapova, Spivak, Jacoby at $8,800 to $8,600. And then in the middle range, we're getting more to Devonte Smith at $8,500 and Jekyll at $8,400. Bryce Mitchell at $8,300, Jalen Turner at $8,200, Malarkey at $8,000. And then we get down to the lower tier as far as dollar value. Barboza $7,900, Nuga Murano is $7,800, Klein is $7,700, Zachek $7,600, etc., 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 etc. So first thing that strikes me when I'm looking through here is I like to go through and I like to take a look at who I consider to be fighters that, in my mind, feel like they're almost a guarantee, a lock. So when I first skim through here, I believe Nurmagomedov, that is one where I think Brian Kelleher is a great fighter, but I think Nurmagomedov, he's 13-0, I think he's going to be very good. Problem is he's $9,600. That is a pricey amount to pay, and you've got to find other areas to make cuts. Colby Covington's $9,400. I don't think he's a guarantee. I think that fight with Jorge is going to be much tougher, so that's not one where I'm feeling super confident to drop $9,400 when I'm creating a lineup in here. Marina Rodriguez, I think she could be a lock. She's $9,300. I think it's a little pricey. And in some other 30-round fights, we've seen her not score as well. Not enough points to validate spending $9,300 on her. Kevin Holland, 9,100. That's another one where he averages about 74.3 fantasy points per fight. So, and this fight will most likely stay on the feet. So that does kind of excite me and entice me. So there's one that I'm interested a bit. Tagir Ulanbekov's 9,000. He's only had one fight in the UFC so far, 2 fights, and in both fights he scored 84.8 and 92.7, and those were 3-round decisions. So, and he's coming up against a scrappy Tim Elliott, but I think Tagir might be one that I feel like a lock, and he's only 9,000. I feel a little better about spending 9,000 on a guy that I know can take Tim Elliott most likely down and out-grapple him. I know Elliott's a very good grappler, but typically guys that are more solid, seasoned grapplers are going to out-position him, outwork him to a degree. Some others that I feel pretty good about as I'm skipping through here. Jamie Mullarkey at 8,000. Mullarkey's coming off of 2 back-to-back victories over Devonte Smith and Kama Worthy. Both were knockouts, and he scored over 100 points in both of those. And even in his 2 losses, he scored 40 points. That is solid. So for $8,000 against Jalen Turner, who has not been the most consistent. I mean, Turner, I shouldn't say that. He hasn't been the most consistent. He didn't start off very consistently. Luque, Potter, Frivola, very hard fights. He went 1-2 in those 3. He has won his last 3, 2 by sub, so he could always catch a sub in this. But the guy that I feel the most comfortable about, especially with them both being around 8,000, is Jamie Mullarkey at $8,000. I think he's a great pick, and I'm going to place him in my lineup right now. Next, let's keep going down here. Let's see, we got Barboza at 7,900. I'm torn on the Barboza Bryce Mitchell thing. Ludwig Klein at 7,700. I don't feel confident about him, so in my mind, I've already kind of worked him out of my lineups. Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, I think at 7,600. He's one that you can take a shot on to save some money. So he's definitely an underdog. And the most interesting aspect of this entire thing is because Rafael Fiziev dropped out, we've got Rafael dos Anjos at 7,300 and Hanato Moikano at 7,200. So if you're playing in 50-50 matchups, like double ups, things like that, where you don't mind for certain matchups playing both fighters, I think the Dos Anjos Moikano double play isn't terrible. Now, if you're doing lineups for big money, one lineup for, a $25 big contest, obviously playing 2 fighters that are in the same fight, it can get you into some money lines, but it's not going to get you into that top money line. So if you're just looking to potentially pick up, some solid money, and not looking to go for the big money, that could be a play for you. But ultimately, with both those guys being that cheap, it comes down to which one do you like more. And I really do like Rafael dos Anjos, but there's something that's been telling me to go with Hanato Moikano. He's coming off of a great victory. He should be in great shape for this fight. It is only 3 rounds, and at 7,200, I think Hanato Moikano is a steal. So I'm going to throw him in my lineup now. So right now I got Jamie Mullarkey at 8,000, Hanato Moikano at 7,200. So the average I have remaining is 8,700. Excellent. Let's go back down to the bottom here. I'm just going to flip through. I got Jorge Masvidal at 6,800. I think he's one that is worth taking a chance on. So if you're looking to get somebody like Umar Magomedov, I think taking a risk on a Jorge Masvidal to offset that dollar amount is a smart move. I'm not saying Jorge's definitely going to win, but I do feel pretty confident he's going to put up a much better fight than the odds are telling us. And those odds have helped bring Jorge down to a $600-800 dollar tag. So, for me, I have plugged Jorge into some of my lineups. If you're somebody that is not high on Jorge, I don't blame you. You don't need to put him in there. For the sake of this conversation, I'm going to leave him out. And then we got Brian Kelleher down at the bottom, Zhaonan, Alex Oliveira. I don't feel confident about any of them. So in my mind, I've kind of worked them out. Zhaonan, I don't believe she's going to pick up a win over Rodriguez. She's coming off of a tough loss to Carla Esparza. Before that, I guess the best matchup for her as far as grappling was against Karolina Kowalkiewicz. She took her down 5 times and won a decision there. Prior to that, she only had 1 takedown. So Yan's got 6 takedowns in the UFC, and 5 of those came against Karolina Kowalkiewicz. And I don't see her finding a way to piece up Marina Rodriguez on the feet. I think Marina Rodriguez is a badass on the feet, and I think, as much as this could be a close matchup, I think Marina's definitely going to win. So Yan is out of the picture for me. Brian Kelleher could give Nurmagomedov a run for his money. He is coming off 2 big victories, 2 decision victories. But at the same time, I don't feel overly confident that he's going to be able to pick up a win against somebody as talented as Nurmagomedov has been. I do think he'll give Nurmagomedov a challenge, but I don't have a lot of faith in Brian Kelleher. So, let's scroll back up here. So, another guy I might potentially play is Mikhail Zaychuk. Now, for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to go back up to some of the more expensive fighters. For me, Kevin Holland, Tagir Ulanbekov. I'm going to take one of them right now in this lineup. I think Ulanbekov has the ability to get takedowns, big points in Draftkings, and I think he's going to be overall the better grappler over Tim Elliott. And I think he's going to outposition him and just be the better fighter in that matchup, and he could score a lot of takedowns. Elliott is very scrappy. He can get back to his feet, but if Ulanbekov can constantly get takedowns, move past guard, things like that, he could score a lot of points in this matchup. So I'm going to take Ulanbekov. Now that gives me 3 out of my 6 fighters. I'm at $8,600 remaining average, which is excellent. Let's take a look here who else we might want to take a shot on. So if I was to go ahead and grab Umar Nurmagomedov, that's going to drop my average remaining to $8,100. So I got Moikano, Malarkey, Nurmagomedov, Ulanbekov. Leaves me with 2 spots left. Now, if I want to go with a lineup like this, now I can take some shots on Mikhail Zaychuk and Edson Barboza. Which one do I feel better about? I'm going to actually take Edson Barboza here. So taking Edson Barboza there leaves me with $8,300 left. So that gives me some options here. I've got Bryce Mitchell. I'm not going to double up. So that basically discounts him. Jalen Turner. I already took Malarkey. Not going to go that route. I have Nuga Morano. Now, Nuga Morano is 11-1. He lost his first fight against Safarov, but he has come back and won his last 2 fights, and he's taking on Njekwu. So that is a play that I could play in that spot. I could see taking a shot there. I feel better about Mikhail Zaychuk at $7,600. So if I take him, I now have a completed lineup. So that's a little bit of what goes into my thought process of picking a DraftKings lineup. That leaves me with Barboza, Moikano, Malarkey, Nurmagomedov, Zaychuk, and Ulanbekov. Now, for the sake of conversation, I'm going to take Nurmagomedov out, and I'm going to take, let's see here, Zaychuk and Barboza out. So I still got my 3 core that I'm working off of, Moikano, Malarkey, Ulanbekov. Now, if you are going to play a bunch of lineups, you might want to split the Moikano, Rafael dos Anjos. You may want to take a shot on Jalen Turner and swap him out with Malarkey. I still feel very good about Ulanbekov. And for the sake of this, I'm going to throw Jorge Masvidal in there. Now, with Masvidal, Moikano, Malarkey, and Ulanbekov, that leaves me with an average remaining of $9,500 for the last 2 fighters. That gives me the ability to take Nurmagomedov. That gives me the ability to take Kevin Holland or Marina Rodriguez. So, it's a matter of you analyzing the data and kind of taking a look at it, figuring out who you're not confident on, who you are confident on, what underdogs you feel the best about, what kind of money they leave you for the favorites that you feel most confident about, which ones get a lot of takedowns, which ones, have the tendency of scoring a knockout, average the most fantasy points. There's a lot of aspects to think about when you're looking at something like this. So I won't rant too much more about it, but I just wanted to give you guys some insight into this card, into what I do when it comes to DraftKings. Like I said, I typically play with plus money from DraftKings a lot, and I'm still looking to get my big payday, that big one. I've come close a few times, a few real close ones. So just to give you guys some insight, though, if you plan on dropping some money on DraftKings, that's my thoughts. Those are some of the players that I really like going into this, and I hope that was insightful for everybody. So thank you guys so much for checking out my UFC 272 fight pick and betting coverage. Please hit that like button. I appreciate you guys watching the video. Hit that subscribe button. Subscribers are been coming in lately. I'm really pumped about how the channel is growing and continuing to grow. So please hit that subscribe button. It means the world and it helps my channel get to where I want it to be so I can continue to keep doing more and more content for you guys. I want to eventually do this UFC picks every week as a live chat. That is my ultimate goal. Got to get enough subscribers, enough people interested so we can actually do a live chat. So that is the plan. If you guys want to be involved in that, leave a comment in the comment section below. Once again, like, subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next episode of Jeremy's Point of View. Until then, peace.